I'll be real with you. This all started with a birthday invitation that should have been simple. My mom texted me 3 weeks before her birthday. "Hey, sweetie, I'm having a little dinner at the house for my birthday. I'd love for you to come. It would mean the world to me." I stared at my phone for a good 5 minutes, just frozen. Because the house she was talking about wasn't really hers. It was his. Her new husband, Greg. To give some context, my mom married Greg last year, pretty quick after dating him for less than 2 years. I didn't like him from the beginning. There wasn't one huge thing he did that made me hate him. It was death by 1,000 little cuts. The way he'd talk over me. The backhanded comments about how I should grow up and get a real career. The weird smirk he always had, like he knew something I didn't. And the kicker? He never once called me by my actual name. Just kid, or champ, or sometimes, if he was in a bad mood, freeloader. The thing is, I'm not a freeloader. I work full-time. I pay my own rent. I don't ask my mom for anything. But Greg had this way of making me feel like I was some sort of unwanted guest whenever I came around. So when she sent that text, my stomach turned. Because I knew she wanted me there, but the thought of sitting across from Greg at dinner, listening to his smug little laugh, watching him put his hand on her shoulder like he owned her, made me feel sick. I typed and deleted my reply about 6 times. Finally, I just wrote, "I don't think I can make it this year, Mom. I'm sorry." She responded almost instantly. "What? Why not?" And there it was. The moment I'd been avoiding for months. The truth I'd been swallowing every time she called and said, "Greg says hi." The truth I'd kept to myself at Christmas when I spent half the night hiding in the kitchen to avoid him. I took a deep breath and texted back, because I can't stand Greg. I don't want to sit there pretending like everything's fine when it's not. I didn't get a reply that night, or the next morning. But the following evening, my phone rang. It was her. I almost didn't pick up, but my guilt won. When I answered, her voice was tight. "So, you're really not coming?" And just like that, I felt like a kid again. Like I was letting her down in some irreversible way. But I stood my ground. "Mom, I can't sit in a room with him. I've tried, I really have. I can't fake it anymore." There was this long pause. Then she sighed, this deep, tired sound. "You know, it's just one night. For me. For my birthday. Could you really not do that, just for me?" And that's where I froze. Because maybe I could. Maybe I should. But there was something in her tone, this little crack, that made me wonder if this wasn't just about one dinner. Something was going on. And I had no idea how deep it went. The silence between us stretched longer than I could handle. I could hear her shifting the phone, like she was pacing the kitchen or fiddling with something on the counter. That was my mom's tell. Whenever she was nervous, she couldn't sit still. "Sweetheart," she said finally, her voice softer now, "you don't have to love Greg. I'm not asking that. But I just wanted my son there on my birthday. That's all." Guilt gnawed at me again. I pictured her at the dining table, the one that used to be in our old house before she sold it and moved into Greg's. I remembered how she always went overboard for birthdays, balloons, cake, streamers, even when it was just the two of us. For a second, I almost caved. But then I pictured Greg's smug face, the way he leaned back in his chair like a king surveying his kingdom. And I remembered last Thanksgiving when he told me, in front of everyone, that some people just never leave the nest because they're scared of the real world. I had my own apartment. I paid my own bills. But he knew exactly how to twist the knife. I couldn't do it. "Mom," I said carefully, "you deserve to celebrate with people who actually make you happy. I'm not going to sit at that table and ruin it by being miserable." Her breath hitched, like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Finally, she whispered, "Fine, if that's how you feel." And then she hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling like I'd just punched myself in the chest. The fallout came quicker than I expected. 2 days later, my cousin Rachel called me. She's a year older than me, always the peacemaker in the family. "What's going on?" she asked without preamble. I groaned. "Did Mom call you?" "She didn't have to. Aunt Karen called me, and apparently your mom's been crying. She says you're refusing to come to her birthday dinner because of Greg. Is that true?" "Yes," I admitted. "Because I can't stand him. You know how he is." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Look, I don't like him either. But he makes her happy. Can't you just suck it up for one night?" "That's what everyone keeps saying," I snapped. "But no one sees what he's like when it's just me and him. He takes these little digs, constantly. And she just sits there, pretending not to notice." Rachel sighed. "I get it, I really do. But if you don't show up, it's going to look like you're making her choose between you and him. That hit me harder than I expected. Was I? By the end of the week, I was getting texts from my aunt, my uncle, even my grandma. All variations of the same guilt trip. It's just one night. Don't ruin your mom's birthday. Stop being dramatic. And then, just when I was about to throw my phone against the wall, I got a text from Greg. Yes, Greg. Hey champ, heard you're boycotting the party. Gotta say, not a great look. People are talking. Don't make this harder on your mom than it needs to be. My blood boiled. I could practically hear his condescending tone in every word. And how the hell did he even have my number? I'd never given it to him. I typed out a reply, something scathing about how he was the reason I wasn't coming, but then deleted it. He'd love that. He'd show my mom, spin it so I looked like the villain. Instead, I just blocked his number. But the damage was already done. My hands were shaking, and a knot was forming in my stomach that wouldn't go away. The night of the dinner, I stayed home. I ordered takeout, put on a dumb comedy, and tried not to think about the family gathered around that big oak table, pretending everything was perfect. Around 9, my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. You're not going to believe what I just overheard. I sat up straight. Greg was outside on the phone. I stepped out to grab my coat, and I swear I heard him say, "She'll never know as long as we keep this between us." My heart slammed against my ribs. Who was he talking to? I texted back. I don't know. But he hung up the second he saw me. He looked guilty, honestly. I stared at her words, a chill creeping down my spine. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about me not liking Greg. There was something bigger going on, and I needed to find out what it was. I barely slept after Rachel's text. I kept replaying the exact phrasing in my head. She'll never know as long as we keep this between us. And every interpretation made me feel worse. Was he cheating? Was he hiding money? Was there something going on with the house, or with my mom? I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, counting the slow spins and trying to slow my breathing. Around 3 in the morning, I gave up pretending to rest and made coffee I didn't need. By sunrise, I talked myself into doing something I swore I wouldn't do. I called Rachel and asked her to meet me for breakfast. She answered on the second ring, voice raspy with sleep. You okay? Not really, I said. Can you meet me at Milton's? Like in an hour? Milton's is this diner that's been in our town longer than either of us. Vinyl booths, clatter of plates, a chalkboard menu that still says new, next to a turkey club that's been there since high school. It felt safe, neutral. Rachel agreed, and I threw on jeans and a hoodie and drove with my stomach in knots. She was already in a booth when I arrived, hair up in a messy bun, cardigan swallowing her shoulders. The server had just set down 2 waters. Rachel slid a menu toward me. You look like you didn't sleep. I didn't, I admitted, dropping into the seat. Tell me everything from last night. Every detail. She exhaled and rubbed her temples. Okay. So, after dessert, everyone kind of split up. Some people moved to the living room. Aunt Karen started loading the dishwasher. I went to grab my coat from the hallway. The side door was cracked open. I stepped outside and it was cold. Greg was on the patio, facing the fence. He didn't see me. He said, clear as day, "She'll never know as long as we keep this between us." He was quiet for a second like he was listening. Then he said, "No, she's not coming tonight." Which is good. Then he turned, and when he saw me, he hung up so fast it hurt my ears. He gave me this fake smile and said he was checking on the grill cover. The grill cover was literally frozen to the grill. The server came by with coffee, and we both murmured thanks without breaking eye contact. My hands were tight around the mug. So he could have been talking about my mom, right? She'll never know. Or he could have meant someone else. Right, Rachel said. But he looked, I don't know, startled, like he'd been caught. He texted me. I blurted. Rachel blinked. He what? Last night before your text. Told me not to boycott the party. Called me champ. I rolled my eyes. I blocked him. But how did he even get my number? She made a face. Probably your mom's phone. Or he synced the contacts to the house system. He does that kind of thing, doesn't he? Acts like every shared space is his control room. I nodded, staring at the steam curling off my cup. I hate that I'm doing this, but I keep thinking about practical stuff. Like bills. Or the house. Mom sold our place to move into his. What if something's off there? What if he's using her? Rachel leaned forward. Then we find out. Look, I know you don't want to be the kid who snoops, but this guy gives me a bad feeling. Always has. If there's something to know, better to know. She paused. We have options. Check public records. See if he has a business. See if there are liens. Or, and I'm not proud of this idea, we could, stop by the house while your mom's at work and ask him directly. I snorted. He'd laugh in my face. Okay, maybe not that. But the records thing is legit. And, she hesitated. I have another detail. Last month at Christmas, I was in the hallway and I saw your mom's wrist. There was this bruise under her sweater cuff. I asked if she bumped it on the counter and she said, "Oh, silly me, cabinet door." But it was dark purple and long. Like fingers. My chest tightened. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure, she said quickly. And I didn't want to throw gasoline on everything if I was overreacting. But after last night, I can't shake it. My throat felt dry. My mom bruises easily, but the image of a hand-shaped mark made my stomach flip. I forced myself to breathe. Okay, I said. Let's start with what we can actually check. Public stuff. If there's smoke, maybe we'll see it. We wolfed down eggs we didn't taste, paid, and drove to the library because neither of us wanted to run searches on our home Wi-Fi. It felt paranoid and ridiculous, but it also felt smart. The librarian smiled at us like we were studying for finals, and we took 2 computers near the back where dusty radiators hummed. I typed Gregory Allen Whitmore and our city's name into the property records database. Nothing came up. I tried just Greg Whitmore. Still nothing. I went broader. County deeds, mortgage filings, business licenses. After 10 minutes of nothing, a thought hit me like a cold splash. He might not have the deed in his name. Rachel looked over. What do you mean? What if the house is in an LLC? People do that to protect assets. I added quotes with my fingers so the air could see my skepticism. I tried again, this time with our mom's address. And there it was, a tidy entry listing the owner as W+B Holdings, LLC. My spine prickled. I clicked through. The registered agent was a law office downtown. The mailing address was a P.O. box. The formation date was 15 months ago, 2 weeks after my mom put her old house on the market. Rachel murmured, W+B? Whitmore Plus. I stopped. B, who's B? My mom's name doesn't start with B. Who else could be B? Rachel pulled her chair closer. Click the business registry. See the members. I searched the state business entity database and found W+B Holdings easily. Members listed as Gregory A. Whitmore and B. My breath hitched. It wasn't a last name I recognized. Brielle? Brielle Carter. Who is that? Rachel whispered. I shook my head slowly. The name was unfamiliar. I don't know. We stared at the screen, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. My thoughts scattered. Maybe she was an attorney. Maybe a financial advisor. Maybe a silent partner for a renovation business. But why would a random woman co-own the LLC that owns the house my mom lives in? Rachel typed the name into social media. A few profiles popped up, the usual mix of private accounts and old posts from college-age people in other states. And then one hit that made both our heads lift. A local business page for a small staging and interior design company. The profile picture was a woman in her mid-30s with caramel hair and bright lipstick, standing in a kitchen that looked suspiciously like Greg's, except the stools were different. Rachel said what I was thinking. Is that your mom's kitchen? I enlarged the photo. The backsplash was identical. The little teal hexagons Greg bragged about installing with his buddy when they first started dating. The pendant lights were the same, but the angle was different. And there was a vase of tulips where my mom always keeps a ceramic fruit bowl. The caption, loving this W+B project. Clean lines, cozy textures. Hashtag staging, hashtag design life. My stomach dropped. W+B project. I repeated, hearing the blood rush in my ears. She's the B. She works with him? Rachel chewed her lip. Or for him. Or they invested together. But why wouldn't your mom's name be anywhere? I scrolled further. More photos from around the same time. Living rooms that looked staged, a shot of a staircase I recognized from Greg's house, but with a different runner. Another caption, before and after magic with my favorite collaborator. You know who you are. Heat rose up my neck. The coy tone made my skin crawl. Favorite collaborator. You know who you are. Who? Greg? It couldn't be my mom. Mom is not a winky face person. Rachel clicked a tagged photo. It was from a holiday open house. There was Greg, in a blazer, his arm around Brielle's shoulders. They were standing close. Too close for colleagues in my opinion, and both were laughing at something outside the frame. The date stamp hit me. This was taken 2 months before the wedding. I pulled back from the monitor. The library temperature suddenly felt 20 degrees hotter. He was involved with her. At least professionally. Maybe more. Rachel's voice was careful. We don't know that. But this is not nothing. I pushed my hands through my hair. You think my mom knows? Rachel's answer was immediate and painful. If she does, then the B should be her initial, not someone else's. And if she doesn't, she trailed off. I swallowed hard. I felt a mix of vindication and dread. I told myself I was avoiding the birthday dinner because of 1,000 paper cuts. Now it felt like I'd dodged a bullet. But the victory tasted like ash because the person who might be bleeding was my mom. We printed the registry page and a couple of the public photos, even though it felt gross to make physical copies. I slid them into a manila folder like I was in a movie I never wanted to star in. On the way out, Rachel touched my sleeve. What's your next move? I don't know, I said honestly. I could go to my mom and put this down on the table, but if Greg's wrapped around her decisions, she might defend him, and then I'm the enemy who went digging. Or I could confront him, but then he has warning and time to spin it. Rachel nodded, eyes stormy. There's a third option. Find out what Brielle says. If she doesn't owe him loyalty, she might talk. The idea made my stomach flip again, but for a different reason. It felt actionable. How would we even reach her? Rachel lifted her phone. She's got a business page with a contact form and a public number. We can book a consult. Pretend to want staging for an apartment. Ask questions. See how she talks about W plus B. I hesitated. I'd never been great at pretending to be someone else. But then I pictured my mom's wrist, the bruised smudge under her sweater, and Greg's hand squeezing her shoulder just a little too tight at Thanksgiving. Okay, I said. Let's do it. We didn't even wait. Rachel sat in the driver's seat of her car, heater humming, and called the number on speaker while I watched the condensation on the windshield tremble. A voicemail picked up, bright, friendly. Hi. You've reached Brielle with Brielle Carter Design and Staging. I'm either with a client or treasure hunting for the perfect throw pillow. Leave your name and number, and I'll call you back. Rachel left a vague message about a one-bedroom project on a flexible timeline, then hung up. She'll call, she said. People like this always call. I stared out at the gray parking lot and nodded, not trusting my voice. We sat in silence while the engine ticked, and my brain made lists. If Brielle called, what would I say? How would I even know what to ask? How do you slip, by the way? Are you romantically or financially entangled with my mother's husband into a conversation about accent rugs? My phone buzzed. For a split second I thought it was Brielle already. Fast, too fast, but it was my mom. My chest tightened so quickly it hurt. I answered with an unsteady, hey. Her voice was calm enough to scare me. Hi, sweetie. Do you have a minute? I'd like to stop by your place. I'm in the neighborhood. I flicked my eyes to Rachel, who raised her eyebrows, then mouthed, now? I swallowed. Yeah? Sure. I'll be there in 15. Good, she said. I'll bring coffee. The line clicked dead. I stared at my reflection in the black screen. My mom was coming to me, not to ask, but to say. My legs felt like they might give out. Rachel squeezed my shoulder. I'll follow and park around the corner. Text me if you need backup. I nodded, heart thudding so hard I could feel it in my gums. I drove home on autopilot, the manila folder on the passenger seat like a live wire. The sky was a pewter lid. Bare branches clawed at it as wind pushed trash down the street. When I pulled into my spot, my mom's sedan turned the corner right behind me. She got out with a tray of coffees and a small bakery bag. She looked tired, not like someone who'd hosted a cheerful birthday dinner the night before. Her makeup was careful, almost too careful, and I noticed, with a twisting gut, that she was wearing long sleeves under her coat. Hi, I said, forcing a smile. I took the coffees from her and kissed her cheek. Her skin felt cool. Inside, she set the bag on my table and smoothed the paper like it had offended her. I got your favorite. Blueberry. Thanks, I said. What's up? She looked around my apartment too methodically, the way you look when you don't want to look at a person. Then she took a breath and faced me. Greg thinks you and I need boundaries. Heat flashed up my neck. Greg thinks. Let me finish, she said sharply, then softened. Please. I bit my tongue and lifted my hands. She folded hers in front of her, the sleeves slipping a fraction to show a small yellow-green shadow near her wrist. My eyes caught it and then jerked away. She continued. He thinks you have trouble respecting our relationship and that you undermine it. And I think, maybe, there's some truth. You've been very cold. You didn't come last night. My ears were ringing. I told you why. Because you don't like him, she said, and the way she said it was like a tired teacher reciting lesson plans. But I love him. He is my husband. I want you to accept that. I forced air in and out. Do you accept what comes with him? Her chin lifted a fraction, warning me. What are you implying? I reached for the folder on the counter, then stopped. The moment balanced on a pin. If I showed her, the air would not go back into the room. The door, once opened, wouldn't close. Instead, I asked quietly, who is Brielle? My mom's face changed in a way I cannot fully describe. It wasn't shock. It wasn't confusion. It was like a flicker of something, recognition, maybe, crossed her features, and then locked itself in a drawer. She wet her lips. Where did you hear that name? I held her gaze. Does it matter? She glanced at the front door, then at the coffee she hadn't touched. Her fingers worried the edge of a napkin. Greg has colleagues. Colleagues who co-own the house you live in. The words left my mouth before I could soften them. Colleagues who take pictures in your kitchen? She flinched. It was tiny, but I saw it. For a heartbeat. Hope was a physical thing in my chest. Hope that she hadn't known, that she'd be angry with me, with him, that we'd be together on the side of the truth. Then her face smoothed. You've been snooping, she said, voice flat. That's not acceptable. I'm worried about you. I don't need you to worry, she snapped, and the sharpness made me blink. She dragged a hand through her hair. The house is set up how Greg's accountant advised. It's legal. Brielle is a partner in some projects. That is all. Is that what he told you? I asked, or what you believe? Her eyes went glassy. For a second I thought she might cry, but she didn't. She lifted her chin again. I came here to say that I want peace. If you cannot be polite to my husband, then perhaps some distance is best. For a while. The room tilted. Are you telling me not to come around? I'm asking you to respect my marriage, she said. And to stop digging, for your own sake. For my own. I stopped because her gaze darted to the door again. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just worried about me finding out something messy. She was worried about him finding out that I was finding out. The realization was a shard in my throat. Mom, I said softly, and I reached, without thinking, to touch her wrist. She jerked back instinctively. The cuff of her sleeve rode up an inch. The bruise, yellow-green fading into brown, wrapped like a crescent above her bone. We both stared at it. She pulled the sleeve down, face going stiff. I banged it on the cabinet, she said too quickly. I heard tires on gravel outside, and my doorbell buzzed a second later. My mom startled so sharply the coffees trembled. She said, voice too bright. That's probably a delivery. I should go. The bell buzzed again. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Open up, champ. We need to talk man to man. I stared at the screen, at the word champ, and felt the temperature of the room drop. My mom's eyes flicked to my phone, then to me, and in that split second I saw what she couldn't say out loud. He was at my door. And whatever we were about to find out, he didn't plan on letting me hear it on my terms. The buzzing rattled in my skull like an alarm I couldn't shut off. My mom's face was pale, her lips pressed together in a tight line. She stood frozen by the table, one hand still on the crumpled napkin she'd been shredding, as if moving might give her away. Don't answer, she whispered. The doorbell buzzed again. Then a loud knock. Champ, come on, I know you're in there. His voice carried right through the thin wood, smooth and mocking, the way he always sounded when he thought he had the upper hand. My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at me to open that door and end the waiting, but something about the way my mom was standing, shoulders tight, body angled away, made me hesitate. She wasn't just tense. She was scared. I lowered my voice. Why is he here? She shook her head once, sharply. Please, don't. Another knock. Harder this time. The frame shivered. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the same number. We need to clear the air. Open the door, or I'll start talking to the neighbors about your little crusade. My mouth went dry. He knew. He knew I'd been digging. I looked at my mom, at the bruise under her sleeve, at the way she wouldn't meet my eyes. If I don't let him in, he's not going to stop. Then don't let him in, she hissed. Let him talk. Let him scream. Just don't. Her voice cracked on the last word, and it made something twist deep inside me. The knocking stopped. Silence filled the space between us, heavy and suffocating. Then came the scrape of shoes on the porch, followed by the sound of his voice, lower this time, right against the door. I know you've been snooping, champ. I know you and Rachel think you're clever. But you don't want to play this game with me. You'll lose. My mom squeezed her eyes shut, as if the words themselves were knives. Mom, I whispered, he threatened me. Her eyes flew open. That's not a threat, she said quickly, almost desperately. That's just Greg being Greg. He talks big. He doesn't mean anything. But the way she said it didn't convince even her. My phone buzzed again. Last chance. Open up. I didn't move. My mom didn't either. We stood there, staring at each other, while Greg's footsteps finally retreated down the walkway. Through the blinds, I caught a glimpse of his car pulling away. Only when the taillights disappeared did my mom let out a shaky breath. She collapsed into the chair like all the strings holding her up had been cut. I sat across from her, my hands clenched. You can't keep defending him. Her eyes were glassy, rimmed red. You don't understand. Then make me understand. For the first time, she looked at me without the mask she always wore around Greg. She looked tired, cornered. If you knew what I know, you wouldn't be so eager to pick a fight. The air felt heavier. Then tell me. She shook her head. It's not that simple. Mom, he's lying to you. About the house, about Brielle, about. Her head snapped up at the name. That tiny flicker of recognition again. She pressed her lips together, and I could see the battle happening behind her eyes. Finally, she said, so quiet I barely heard. Don't go looking for her. The way she said it wasn't a warning. It was a plea. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Greg. It was Rachel. He knows. He came by my apartment. I think he followed me home. I called Rachel right away. My fingers shook so badly that I almost dropped the phone. She picked up on the first ring, her voice hushed and quick, like she was crouched under a blanket. He was outside my building, she whispered. I saw his car when I pulled in. He was just sitting there, watching. My stomach lurched. Is he still there? No. He left about 10 minutes ago, but he slowed down when he drove past my window, like he wanted me to know he saw me see him. I swore under my breath, pressing the heel of my palm into my forehead. Across the table, my mom flinched at the sound, her shoulders curling inward. Rachel, lock your doors. Don't answer if anyone knocks. I'll come by. No, she said quickly. That'll just make it obvious we're working together. I'll be fine tonight. But, she paused, her breath shaky. He knows. That means we must have found something he doesn't want out. Which means you're onto something real. The line went quiet for a beat, and then she whispered, be careful. When I hung up, my mom was staring at me, her face pale and drawn. What did she say? I hesitated, then said, he followed her home. Sat outside her place. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. You can't keep poking him like this. Mom, he's stalking my cousin. That's not something you just brush off. You don't know him, she snapped. Not really. He can be difficult, yes, but he's protective. He doesn't like people meddling. I leaned forward, my voice low and sharp. Protective doesn't look like following a young woman to her apartment at night. That's not protection, that's intimidation. Her jaw tightened, but the way her eyes darted away told me she knew I was right. That night, I couldn't sit still. Every creak of the building made me jump. I kept checking the window, half expecting Greg's car to appear outside like some nightmare made of chrome and headlights. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a call. Unknown number. My gut told me it was him. I let it go to voicemail, but a second later, the message icon lit up. Against my better judgment, I played it. His voice filled the room, smooth and cold. Champ, you're making a mistake. You think you know what you're doing, but you don't. You're out of your depth. If you care about your mom, you'll stop. Last warning. I sat there in the dark, heart pounding, the silence after his words somehow louder than the message itself. The next morning, I drove to Rachel's place. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, but alive. She let me in and locked the door behind us like a reflex. I thought I was paranoid, she said, but I checked my mailbox this morning. The flap was bent, like someone had pulled it open too far. I rubbed the back of my neck. He's trying to scare us. Make us back off. Rachel pulled out her laptop. Then we push harder. Look, I did some more digging last night. Brielle Carter has more than just a design business. She filed for bankruptcy 3 years ago. Then suddenly, last year, she's posting about big projects again. Guess when? When? The same month your mom sold her house. The same month W plus B Holdings bought Greg's. I felt the pieces clicking together, too sharp to ignore. So he funneled money through her? Used my mom's house sale to bankroll whatever they're doing? Rachel nodded. That's what it looks like. My stomach twisted. Mom's money. Mom's security. All tangled up with a woman she didn't even know about. Or maybe pretended not to know about. Rachel leaned closer, her voice hushed. If we can prove he's hiding assets, or cheating, or both, we could get her out. I wanted to believe it was that simple. But my mom's face when I said Brielle's name still haunted me. She knew something. She just wasn't ready, or wasn't safe enough, to say it. That afternoon, I called her again. She didn't pick up. I tried 3 times, and each one went straight to voicemail. Finally, around 6, she texted, "I'm fine. Please stop digging. You're only making things worse." The words chilled me more than Greg's voicemail had, because they sounded like they weren't fully hers. Like someone had written them for her. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then I typed back, "If you're fine, meet me tomorrow. Just us. No Greg. Neutral place. Please." I didn't expect an answer. But a few minutes later, the dots appeared. Coffee shop on Main. Noon. Just us. I let out a shaky breath. Maybe, finally, she was ready to talk. But even as I let myself feel a flicker of hope, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. A text this time. "See you there too, champ." The hours between that text and the coffee shop meeting felt like walking a tightrope with no net. Every scenario ran through my head. Greg showing up and twisting everything against me. Mom shutting down again. Or worse, Mom siding with him in public while I looked like the crazy one. Rachel insisted on coming along, but I told her to stay out of sight. If he knows you're involved, he'll spin it as some conspiracy. Just wait nearby. If something goes wrong, I'll text. She didn't like it, but she agreed. The next day, I got to the coffee shop early. It was one of those cozy, independent places with mismatched mugs and a chalkboard menu covered in half-erased doodles. Noon rush hadn't hit yet, so it was quiet. Just the low hum of the espresso machine and the scratch of someone's laptop keys in the corner. I picked a booth against the wall, where I could see the door. My hands wouldn't stop tapping against the table. Every time the bell over the door jingled, my stomach jumped. At 11:58, Mom walked in. She looked smaller somehow, her coat too big on her shoulders. She scanned the room, spotted me, and gave a tired smile. Relief washed over me, until the bell jingled again. Greg. He walked in right behind her, like a shadow. He wasn't dressed for casual coffee. Suit jacket, polished shoes, that smug grin plastered across his face. His hand hovered on Mom's back, not quite touching, but close enough to look like ownership. My mom froze when she saw me clock him. He just wanted, she started. Greg cut her off. Wanted to clear the air? Man to man. Like I said. He slid into the booth across from me before I could protest, leaving Mom standing awkwardly between us. After a beat, she sat beside him, her eyes downcast. The sight made my chest ache. Greg leaned back, stretching an arm along the top of the booth. "So, snooping around, are we?" His voice was calm, but his eyes had that sharp gleam I'd learned to dread. I clenched my jaw. "I'm worried about my mom." "She doesn't need you to worry," he said smoothly. "She has me. She had me first." I shot back before I could stop myself. His smirk widened. "Cute. Real cute." Mom touched his arm lightly. "Greg." But he didn't look at her. His gaze stayed locked on me. "You think you found something, don't you? A few public records, some old photos. You think that means you've uncovered some grand conspiracy." I forced myself to hold his stare. "Then explain. What's Brielle's name doing on the company that owns your house?" Mom stiffened beside him, but Greg only chuckled. "Business partner. She handles staging for properties I flip. Perfectly legitimate. My accountant could show you the paperwork if you weren't so busy playing detective." "You mean the properties you bought with my mom's money?" I snapped. The chuckle stopped. His jaw tightened for the briefest second before he leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Careful, champ. Throwing around accusations like that makes you sound paranoid." Mom finally spoke, her voice small. "Greg." He turned his head slightly, and I watched her shrink back into silence. Rage burned in my chest. "You scare her." He tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "Do I? Or do you just not like that she chose me? That she moved on from being mommy to being a wife? The words landed like a slap. Mom's hand trembled on her lap. I wanted her to say something. Anything. But she just stared at her coffee cup like it held the answers. I swallowed hard. She deserves better than being gaslit and controlled. Greg's smile returned, cold and sharp. Big words for someone who doesn't know half the story. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. You want to protect her? Then drop this. Because if you don't, you're going to drag her down with you. Something in his tone made my stomach twist. It wasn't just a threat. It was a warning. He wasn't bluffing. He had something he could use. Mom suddenly stood, her chair scraping against the floor. That's enough. Both of us looked up at her. She was pale, shaking, but her eyes were wet with determination. I can't do this here. She grabbed her coat and hurried out the door. The bell jingled above her head as she disappeared onto the street. I half rose to follow, but Greg's hand shot out, gripping my wrist hard enough to make me wince. His voice was low, meant only for me. You keep digging, champ, and you're going to find something that will destroy her. Think about that before you play hero. He released me and stood, straightening his jacket with that same infuriating smirk. Then he walked out like he owned the whole place. I sat there, heart hammering, the imprint of his grip throbbing on my skin. Outside, through the window, I saw Mom get into his car. She didn't look back once. When I finally stumbled out onto the sidewalk, Rachel was across the street in her car, watching. I got in beside her, hands still shaking. He knows, I said. He knows everything. And he's not even trying to hide it anymore. Rachel's face was pale. What did he say? I told her, every word, every threat. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, so what do we do now? I stared at the road where their car had disappeared. We find out what he's hiding. All of it. Before he uses it against her. As I said it, my phone buzzed again. A new message. From a number I didn't recognize. This one wasn't from Greg. It was from Brielle. We need to talk. But not where he can find us. I stared at the text until the words blurred. My pulse thudded in my ears. Rachel leaned closer, reading over my shoulder. It's her, she whispered. It's Brielle. I swallowed hard. How does she even have my number? She's in business with him, Rachel said. If Greg has your number, she could too. Maybe she got it through their company records. The real question is, do you trust her? That was the million-dollar question. For all I knew, this was some elaborate trick Greg set up to bait me. But the wording felt different. Not smug. Not taunting. Just urgent. I typed back where? The dots appeared. Disappeared. Then the reply. Old train depot. Back parking lot. Tonight. 9 p.m. Come alone. Every red flag in my brain screamed, don't go. A deserted lot at night? It was the stuff crime podcasts were made of. Rachel must have read my face because she shook her head. You're not going alone. She said. I don't care what she said. If Greg catches on, it's dangerous. I'll stay hidden. You need backup. I didn't argue. Not this time. By 9, we were parked a block from the old depot. The building had been abandoned for years. All boarded windows and graffiti, the lot cracked with weeds. A single street lamp flickered near the far end, throwing long, jagged shadows across the pavement. Rachel crouched low in the passenger seat of her car while I walked toward the lamp, heart hammering. Every step echoed too loudly. Then I saw her. A woman leaning against a silver sedan, hood pulled up, hands shoved deep into her pockets. Even in the dim light, I recognized her from the staging photos. Same caramel hair, though now tied back, same sharp cheekbones. She straightened when she saw me. You came, she said quietly. I nodded, keeping a careful distance. You're Brielle? She pulled her hood down, revealing her face. Yeah, and you're the kid who's been digging where he told you not to. Something about the way she said kid made me bristle, but her tone wasn't mocking. More wary. What do you want? I asked. She glanced around the lot, as if expecting headlights any second. To warn you, Greg's not who you think he is. I let out a bitter laugh. Trust me, I already know that. Her expression stayed serious. No, you don't. If you did, you wouldn't be standing here. I took a step closer. Then tell me, what is he hiding? She exhaled, rubbing her forehead. Look, I didn't plan on this. I thought I could keep my head down, stay out of it. But he's spiraling, and if you keep poking at him, you're going to get caught in the mess. Your mom too. I clenched my fists. What mess? Brielle's eyes flicked back toward the street, then back at me. The money, the properties. On paper, it looks like a clean business. But it's not. He's laundering through my company, staging and design invoices that don't exist. W plus B is a shell. He set it up so if anything goes south, it traces back to me. My stomach dropped. And my mom's money? From her house? Brielle nodded grimly. Seed money. He told her it was an investment for their future. In reality, it bought him leverage. Once she signed, she was locked in. Everything she owns is tied to him now. The world tilted under my feet. I thought I was prepared for bad, but not this. Why are you telling me? I asked, voice raw. Because I can't keep covering for him, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I thought he'd keep it clean. I thought it was just shady accounting. But he's gotten darker. He's angry all the time. And your mom? She hesitated. I've seen the way he talks to her. I've heard him on the phone, after he's been drinking. It's only a matter of time before it gets worse. My throat tightened. I thought about the bruise on my mom's wrist. Then help me stop him, I said. Brielle shook her head quickly. You don't understand. He has people. Investors. The kind you don't cross. If I go to the police, I'm done. If you keep digging, you're done. Then why even meet me? Her eyes softened, just for a second. Because you're the only one who might get through to her. Get her away from him before it's too late. I stared at her, my mind racing. You care about her? Brielle looked away. Not the way you think. But she doesn't deserve this. Before I could press further, headlights swept across the lot. A black SUV turned in, tires crunching gravel. Brielle's face drained of color. That's him. Greg? I whispered, heart leaping into my throat. Go, she hissed, shoving me toward the shadows. If he sees you with me, we're both screwed. I stumbled back, ducking behind a crumbling concrete barrier. The SUV rolled closer, its engine rumbling low. The window slid down, and I saw Greg's profile, sharp under the glow of the street lamp. He called out casually, like he was greeting an old friend. Evening, Brielle. Out late, aren't we? Brielle forced a smile I could see even from my hiding spot. Just grabbing something from the office. Greg's eyes narrowed. Funny place to do business. The SUV idled, filling the air with exhaust. My pulse thundered in my ears. Then Greg said, You wouldn't be meeting anyone here, would you? His voice dripped suspicion. Brielle laughed lightly. Meeting who? It's just me. Greg's gaze swept the lot. For one terrifying second, I thought his eyes locked on me. But then he smirked and leaned back. Keep it that way, he said. You know what happens when people start talking out of turn. The SUV rolled forward, then turned and disappeared back onto the road. Only after the sound of the engine faded did I realize I'd been holding my breath. Brielle sagged against her car, trembling. You see? This is what I'm talking about. He doesn't trust anyone, if he even suspects. She cut herself off and shook her head. Get your mom out. Soon. That's all you can do. Then she slid into her car and drove off, leaving me alone under the flickering lamp. Rachel pulled up a minute later, eyes wide. I saw him. Did he see you? No, I said, voice hollow. But Brielle's right. He's dangerous. And Mom's trapped. I looked down at my phone, still in my hand. There was a new text waiting. From Greg. Hope you enjoyed your little field trip tonight, champ. Next time, I won't be so forgiving. The text sat on my screen like a live wire. My fingers went numb just holding the phone. Rachel leaned over the console, reading it too. He knows, she whispered. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. I shoved the phone into my pocket, as if that would keep the words from burning deeper. He must have followed me. Or maybe he's tracking me somehow. Rachel's eyes darted to the dash. You think he put something on your car? I thought about his smug little grin, the way he always called me champ like I was too dumb to tie my own shoes. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him. Rachel pressed her lips together, then turned the key. We'll check tomorrow. But right now, you need to go home before he decides to make another house call. That night, I barely slept. I sat in the dark with every light off, listening for footsteps outside my door. My phone stayed on the coffee table, screen glowing with each vibration. First, a message from Rachel. Made it home safe. Lock your doors. Talk tomorrow. Then, silence. Until around 3 a.m., when my phone lit up again. No text this time, just a photo. It was my building, taken from the parking lot. My window glowing faintly in the dark. No caption, just the image. My chest went cold. I yanked the curtains shut and sat there until the first sliver of dawn. By morning, I was strung out from lack of sleep, but adrenaline carried me through. Rachel met me at my place with coffee and gloves. If you put a tracker on your car, we'll find it. We crouched by the bumper first, then the wheel wells. Nothing. But when I slid under, flashlight in hand, I saw it. A small black box stuck with a magnet just behind the front tire. Son of a... I muttered, yanking it free. Rachel held it like it might explode. This is definitely illegal, right? Definitely. She looked at me, fear flashing in her eyes. So what do we do with it? I took a deep breath. We keep it. Proof. If he ever tries to spin things, we've got this. But even as I said it, a new worry crawled into my mind. If he realized the tracker was gone, he'd know I found it. Later that afternoon, I finally called my mom. She answered on the second ring, voice soft, careful. Hi, sweetie. Mom, I said, my throat tight. I need you to come over. Just you. Please. A long pause. Greg wouldn't like that. I swallowed hard. Mom, Greg put a tracker on my car. He's following me. He sent me a photo of my apartment at 3 in the morning. Silence. Then, so quiet I could barely hear. He told me you'd say things like this. The words stung more than I expected. You think I'm making it up? I don't know what to think, she whispered. He says you're trying to turn me against him. He says you'll ruin everything we've built. Everything he's built, I shot back. With your money, Mom. With your life? Her breath hitched. For a second, I thought she'd hang up. But then she said, I can't talk about this now. I'll call you later. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, the weight of helplessness pressing down on me. Rachel put a hand on my shoulder. She's scared. He's isolating her. That's what guys like him do. I nodded, but the knot in my chest only grew tighter. That evening, Rachel and I were sitting on my couch, trying to figure out our next move, when my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Greg. It was Brielle. He knows you found the tracker. He's furious. You need to get your mom out tonight. My pulse skyrocketed. What do you mean, out? I typed back. Her reply came fast. He's not just scamming her. He's dangerous. If she pushes back, he won't just walk away. Please, don't wait. Rachel read over my shoulder, her face pale. She's serious. I stood, pacing the room. But how do I even convince Mom to leave? She barely believes me. Before Rachel could answer, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. From my mom. I answered immediately. Mom. Her voice was shaky, frantic. Sweetie, I don't have much time. Greg's gone out, but he'll be back soon. I found something. Something I wasn't supposed to see. My heart pounded. What is it? Silence crackled on the line. Then she whispered. A folder. With your name on it. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. My name. I repeated, my voice cracking. A folder with my name on it? What's in it? I don't know, Mom whispered. I only saw the cover before I heard his car in the driveway. I shoved it back where I found it. Her breath was fast, panicked. He keeps it in the study, bottom drawer of the locked cabinet. I shouldn't have been in there. He'll know I was. The image of her trembling hands, rushing to cover her tracks, made my stomach twist. Mom, listen to me. Get out of the house. Come here. Right now? I can't, she said quickly, voice shaking. He'll notice if I'm gone. If he finds out I called you. Mom. I cut in, desperate. He's keeping a file on me. That's not normal. That's not business. That's... A muffled noise came through the line, like a door opening. Mom gasped. He's back. I have to go. Mom. I shouted, but the line went dead. Rachel gripped my arm, eyes wide. She's in danger. I nodded, throat tight. And if he's keeping a file on me, that means this has been about more than just Mom's money all along. We drove to Rachel's place first, trying to think through our options. If I stormed into the house and confronted Greg, I knew it would blow up. He'd spin it, maybe even call the police on me. But if we did nothing, Mom was stuck with him and his locked drawer. Rachel sat cross-legged on her couch, chewing her thumb. What if the folder has, I don't know, blackmail? Stuff he could use to control you? Or her? I shook my head, pacing. What would he even have on me? I'm boring. I go to work, I pay my bills. There's nothing. Then I froze. Except there was. Something I hadn't told anyone in years. Something from college, a stupid mistake that almost cost me my future. I turned to Rachel, my voice low. If he somehow got his hands on sealed records, or old police reports. Her face paled. You think he knows about that night? I nodded once, feeling sick. And if he does, Mom doesn't. Not the full story. If he's holding that over me, he could use it to make me look like the unstable one. To her. To everyone. Rachel's voice trembled. Then we have to get that folder. We waited until midnight. My stomach was in knots the whole time, every hour dragging like lead. When the clock finally hit 12, Rachel grabbed her keys. We'll go together. You can't do this alone. The drive to Mom's house was a blur. Every streetlight felt like an accusation, every passing car a threat. When we pulled up, the house was dark except for a faint glow in the upstairs window. Mom's room. My chest ached. Rachel parked down the block. We crept along the sidewalk, sticking to the shadows. My hands were sweating so badly that I nearly dropped the spare key Mom had given me years ago, before Greg was in the picture. I slid it into the back door lock. For a terrifying moment, I thought it wouldn't turn. Then, with a soft click, it opened. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and stale cologne. Too quiet. Rachel whispered, "Where's the study?" "Down the hall," I murmured. We tiptoed past the living room, where the glow of the digital clock cast a faint red hue. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart race. The study door was closed. I turned the knob slowly. Unlocked. Inside, the room smelled of cigar smoke and leather. The cabinet sat in the corner, tall and sleek, with polished handles. I crouched down, tugging on the bottom drawer. Locked, like Mom had said. Rachel fished a thin nail file from her bag. "Move." I raised an eyebrow. "Since when do you know how to pick locks?" She gave a nervous smile. "Since I dated Brian the locksmith." Within a minute, the lock clicked. My pulse thundered as I slid the drawer open. Folders. Dozens of them. All neat, labeled with dates and names. And there, toward the back, one with my name printed in bold, block letters. My hands shook as I pulled it out. Inside were photos. Of me. Walking to work. Leaving my apartment. Sitting with Rachel at the diner. Even one of me on my balcony, drinking coffee, half asleep. My stomach turned to ice. He's been following me. Rachel flipped through the pages, her face pale. These are surveillance notes. Times. Dates. Who you met. Where you went. Then she stopped at a stapled set of papers. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God. What?" She held them out. "These are old court records. From that night in college." I grabbed them, my chest tight. It was all there, details I thought were buried forever, sealed by the court. My worst mistake, laid bare. "He knows," I whispered. "He knows everything." Footsteps creaked above us. Rachel's eyes snapped to mine. Someone's awake. We shoved the folder back, pushed the drawer closed, and slipped out of the study as quietly as possible. My pulse hammered in my ears as we crept down the hall. But just as we reached the back door, a voice floated down the stairs. "Low. Cold. Champ. You really don't learn, do you?" I froze at the back door, Rachel just behind me. My hand was on the knob, but my fingers wouldn't move. The voice came again, drifting down the staircase, calm, amused, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. Breaking and entering, champ. Not the smartest move. But then again, smart was never your thing, was it? Rachel's grip tightened on my arm. Her nails dug into my sleeve. "We have to go," she whispered. I turned the knob, praying it would open smoothly. It didn't. The wood groaned as I pulled, loud in the silence. Greg chuckled. "Go on. Run. You're good at that." The sound of his slow, deliberate footsteps on the stairs made my blood run cold. We bolted. The back door slammed behind us, the winter air slapping my face as we sprinted down the yard. Rachel's breath came ragged, our shoes crunching on the frosted grass. Behind us, the front door banged open and Greg's voice cut through the night. "You think you can take her from me? You think she'll believe you over me?" We didn't stop running until we reached Rachel's car. She fumbled with the keys, hands shaking, and we dove inside. The engine roared to life just as headlights flashed in the driveway. Greg's SUV. Rachel peeled away from the curb, tires squealing. My chest heaved, heart slamming against my ribs. In the mirror, Greg's headlights followed for a block, 2 blocks, 3. Then, finally, they turned the other way. Only then did I let out a ragged breath. Back at Rachel's, we collapsed onto her couch, both of us shaking. The folder's images burned into my brain. The photos of me, the notes, the sealed court record. Rachel rubbed her face. "He's been building a case against you. If anything happens, he'll make it look like you're the unstable one." "He's isolating Mom," I said hoarsely. and he's painting me as the threat. If she believes him, I lose her. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Unless we don't give him the chance." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She grabbed the tracker we'd pulled off my car from the counter. "This. The photos. The court record. We take it all to the police. He's crossed so many lines: stalking, illegal surveillance, financial fraud. Even if they don't arrest him tonight, it puts him on the radar." My first instinct was to argue. What if it backfired? What if he twisted it before we could? But then I remembered the bruise on Mom's wrist. The way she'd said I found something before hanging up. The folder with my name. I nodded slowly. "Okay, we go tomorrow." But tomorrow came faster than we expected. At dawn, my phone buzzed. Not a text. A call. From Mom. I answered immediately. "Mom." Her voice was broken, ragged. "Sweetie, I need you. Please, come get me." "Where are you?" "I'm at the diner. Milton's. He went out for a meeting early. I couldn't stay in the house." Her breath hitched. "I saw what was in that folder. He is everything. He said if I ever leave, he'll ruin you." Tears stung my eyes. "Mom, none of that matters. We'll figure it out together. Just stay there. I'm coming." Rachel grabbed her coat without me saying a word. Milton's was nearly empty when we arrived. My mom sat in a corner booth, hands wrapped around a mug of untouched coffee. When she saw me, her face crumpled. I slid in beside her, taking her hand. "It's okay. You're safe now." "No," she whispered. "Not until he's gone." Rachel slid into the opposite booth. "Then let's make him gone." She laid the tracker and the printed records on the table. "We take this to the police. Today." Mom stared at the evidence, her hands trembling. "What if they don't believe us?" "They will," I said firmly. "And even if they don't, it's enough to make him back off. He thrives on control, Mom. Once people are watching, he loses it." She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. I was so blind. I thought he loved me. My chest ached, but I squeezed her hand. He doesn't get to define love. Not anymore. We never made it to the police station on our own. Because as we were walking out of the diner, Greg's SUV pulled into the lot. He saw us through the glass, his expression unreadable. But before he could step inside, a patrol car slid in behind him. Lights flashing. Greg froze as two officers got out. One of them spoke into a radio, then approached his window. Rachel whispered, "How?" I blinked, realizing. Brielle. She must have called them. Greg's jaw clenched as the officer spoke to him. He glanced at us once, his eyes dark with fury, then forced a smile for the cops. But when they asked him to step out of the vehicle, his smile cracked. Hours later, after statements and questions and endless paperwork, Mom was sitting on my couch, wrapped in a blanket. The officers had taken Greg in for questioning. They'd found more in his SUV, a second tracker, a burner phone, and an unregistered firearm. Enough to hold him while they dug deeper. It wasn't over. We knew that. But for the first time in months, I felt like we had a fighting chance. Mom turned to me, her eyes tired but clear. "I'm so sorry, sweetie. I should have listened sooner." I hugged her tightly, my throat too tight to speak. Rachel sat nearby, exhaustion etched on her face. "We'll get through this. Together." For once, I believed it. But as I lay awake that night, I couldn't shake the memory of Greg's eyes through the diner glass. Cold, calculating, and a promise in them that this wasn't the end.